Hare Krishna, everybody. Welcome all of you for today's Bhagavad Gita reading session. Let us begin with prayers. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंदा श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंदा हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे. Reading from Bhagavad Gita as it is by His Divine Grace Abhay Charanaраvinda Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada. Chapter 2, entitled Contents of the Gita Summarized. Text 19. य एनं वेत्ति हन्तारं यश्चैनं मन्यते हतम् उभौ तौ न विजानीतो नायं हन्ति न हन्यते. Synonyms: Yaha, anyone; Enam, this; Veti, knows; Hantaram, the killer; Yaha, anyone; Cha, also; Enam, this; Manyate, thinks; Hatam, killed; Ubhau, both of them; Tau, they; Na, never; Vijanitaha, in knowledge; Na, never; Ayam, this; Hanti, kills; Na, nor; Hanyate, be killed. Translation and purport by Vishwaguru Srila Prabhupada. Translation: The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, "He who thinks that the living entity is the slayer or that he is slain does not understand. One who is in knowledge knows that the self slays not, nor is slain." Purport: When an embodied living entity is hurt by fatal weapons, it is to be known that the living entity within the body is not killed. The spirit soul is so small that it is impossible to kill him by any material weapon, as is evident from the previous verses. Nor is the living entity killable because of his spiritual constitution. What is killed or is supposed to be killed is the body only. This, however, does not at all encourage killing of the body. The Vedic injunction is Mahimsyat Sarva Bhutani. Never commit violence to anyone. Nor does understanding that the living entity is not killed encourage animal slaughter. Killing the body of anyone without authority is abominable and is punishable by the law of the state as well as by the law of the Lord. Arjuna, however, is being engaged in killing for the principle of religion and not whimsically. Text 20. न जायते म्रियते वा कदाचिन् नायं भूत्वा भविता वा न भूयः अजो नित्यः शाश्वतोऽयं पुराणो न हन्यते हन्यमाने शरीरे. Synonyms: Na, never; Jayate, takes birth; Mriyate, never dies; Va, either; Kadachit, at any time, past, present, or future; Na, never; Ayam, this; Bhutva, came into being; Bhavita, will come to be; Va, or; Na, not; Bhuyaha, or has come to be; Ajaha, unborn; Nityaha, eternal; Shashvataha, permanent; Ayam, this; Puranaha, the oldest. Na, never. Hanyate is killed. Hanyamane, being killed. Sharire, by the body. Translation and purport by Vishwaguru Srila Prabhupada. Translation: for the soul there is never birth nor death, nor, having once been, does he ever cease to be. He is unborn, eternal, ever existing, undying, and primeval. He is not slain when the body is slain. Purport: qualitatively, the small atomic fragmental part of the Supreme Spirit is one with the Supreme. He undergoes no changes like the body. Sometimes the soul is called the steady or kutastha. The body is subject to six kinds of transformations. It takes its birth in the womb of the mother's body, remains for some time, grows, produces some effects, gradually dwindles, and at last vanishes into oblivion. The soul, however, does not go through such changes. The soul is not born, but because he takes on a material body, the body takes its birth. The soul does not take birth there, and the soul does not die. Anything which has birth also has death, and because the soul has no birth, he therefore has no past, present, or future. He is eternal, ever existing, and primeval. That is, there is no trace in history of his coming into being. Under the impression of the body, we seek the history of birth, etc., of the soul. The soul does not at any time become old as the body does. The so called old man, therefore, feels himself to be in the same spirit as in his childhood or youth. The changes of the body do not affect the soul. The soul does not deteriorate like a tree nor anything material. The soul has no byproduct either. The byproducts of the body, namely children, are also different individual souls, and owing to the body, they appear as children of a particular man. The body develops because of the soul's presence, but the soul has neither offshoots nor change. Therefore, the soul is free from the six changes of the body. In the Katha Upanishad also, we find a similar passage which reads, "Na jayate mriyate va vipaschin, nayam kutaschinna vibhuva kaschit, ajo nitya shashvato yam purano, na hanyate hanyamane sharire." Katha Upanishad 1.2.18. The meaning and purport of this verse is the same as in the Bhagavad Gita, but here in this verse there is one special word, vipaschit, which means learned or with knowledge. The soul is full of knowledge, or full always with consciousness. Therefore, consciousness is the symptom of the soul. Even if one does not find the soul within the heart where he is situated, one can still understand the presence of the soul simply by the presence of consciousness. Sometimes we do not find the sun in the sky owing to clouds or for some other reason, but the light of the sun is always there, and we are convinced that it is therefore daytime. As soon as there is a little light in the sky early in the morning, we can understand that the sun is in the sky. Similarly, since there is some consciousness in all bodies, whether man or animal, we can understand the presence of the soul. This consciousness of the soul is, however, different from the consciousness of the Supreme, because the Supreme Consciousness is all knowledge, past, present, and future. The consciousness of the individual soul is prone to be forgetful. When he is forgetful of his real nature, he obtains education and enlightenment from the superior lessons of Krishna. But Krishna is not like the forgetful soul. If so, Krishna's teachings of Bhagavad Gita would be useless. There are two kinds of souls, namely the minute particle soul, Anu Atma, and the super soul, the Vibhu Atma. This is also confirmed in the Katha Upanishad in this way. Anoraniyan mahato mahiyan atmasya jantor nihito guhayam tam akratuhu pashyati vita shoko dhatu prasadan mahimanam atmanah. Katha Upanishad 1.2.20. Both the super soul, Paramatma, and the individual soul, Jivatma, are situated on the same tree of the body within the same heart of the living being, and only one who has become free from all material desires as well as lamentations can, by the grace of the Supreme, understand the glories of the soul. Krishna is the fountainhead of the super soul also, as it will be disclosed in the following chapters, and Arjuna is the atomic soul, forgetful of his real nature. Therefore, he requires to be enlightened by Krishna or by his bona fide representative, the spiritual master. Text 21. Veda vinashinam nityam ya enam ajamavyayam katham sapurusha partha kam ghatayati hantikam. Synonyms. Veda in knowledge, avinashinam indestructible, nityam always, yaha one who, enam this soul, ajam unborn, avyayam immutable, katham how, saha he, purushaha person, partha o partha Arjuna, kam whom, ghatayati hurts, hanti kills, kam whom. Translation and purport by Vishwaguru Srila Prabhupada. Translation. O Partha, how can a person who knows that the soul is indestructible, unborn, eternal, and immutable kill anyone or cause anyone to kill? Purport. Everything has its proper utility, and a man who is situated in complete knowledge knows how and where to apply a thing for its proper utility. Similarly, violence also has its utility, and how to apply violence rests with the person in knowledge. Although the justice of the peace awards capital punishment to a person condemned for murder, the justice of the peace cannot be blamed because he orders violence to another person according to the codes of justice. In Manu Samhita, the law book for mankind, it is supported that a murderer should be condemned to death so that in his next life he will not have to suffer for the great sin he has committed. Therefore, the king's punishment of hanging a murderer is actually beneficial. Similarly, when Krishna orders fighting, it must be concluded that violence is for supreme justice, and as such, Arjuna should follow the instruction, knowing well that such violence committed in the act of fighting for Krishna is not violence at all, because at any rate, the man or rather the soul cannot be killed. So, for the administration of justice, so called violence is permitted. A surgical operation is not meant to kill the patient, but to cure him. Therefore, the fighting to be executed by Arjuna at the instruction of Krishna is with full knowledge, So there is no possibility of sinful reaction. Text 22. Vasamsi jirnani yatha vihaya navani grihnati naroparani तथा शरीराणि विहाय जीर्णानि अन्यानि संयाति नवानि देहि. Synonyms: Vasamsi, garments; Jirnani, old and worn out; Yatha, as it is; Vihaya, giving up; Navani, new garments; Ghrnati, does accept; Naraha, a man; Aparani, other; Tatha, in the same way; Sharirani, bodies; Vihaya, giving up; Jirnani, old and useless; Anyani, different; Samyati, verily, accepts; Navani, new sets; Dehi, the embodied. Translation and purport by Vishwaguru Srila Prabhupada. Translation: As a person puts on new garments, giving up old ones, similarly, the soul accepts new material bodies, giving up the old and useless ones. Purport: Change of body by the atomic individual soul is an accepted fact. Even some of the modern scientists who do not believe in the existence of the soul, but at the same time cannot explain the source of energy from the heart, have to accept continuous changes of body which appear from childhood to boyhood, and from boyhood to youth, and again from youth to old age. From old age, the change is transferred to another body. This has already been explained in the previous verse. Transference of the atomic individual soul to another body is made possible by the grace of the Supersoul. The Supersoul fulfills the desire of the atomic soul as one friend fulfills the desire of another. The Vedas, like the Mundaka Upanishad, as well as the Shvetashvatara Upanishad, compare the soul and the supersoul to two friendly birds sitting on the same tree. One of the birds, the individual atomic soul, is eating the fruit of the tree, and the other bird, Krishna, is simply watching his friend. Of these two birds, although they are the same in quality, one is captivated by the fruits of the material tree, while the other is simply witnessing the activities of his friend. Krishna is the witnessing bird, and Arjuna is the eating bird. Although they are friends, one is still the master and the other is the servant. Forgetfulness of this relationship with the atomic soul is the cause of one's changing his position from one tree to another or from one body to another. The Jiva soul is struggling very hard on the tree of the material body, but as soon as he agrees to accept the other bird as the supreme spiritual master, as Arjuna agreed to do by voluntary surrender unto Krishna for instruction, the subordinate bird immediately becomes free from all lamentations. Both the Katha Upanishad and Shvetashvatara Upanishad confirm this. Samane vrikshe purusho nimagno anishaya shochati muhyamanaha jushtam yada pashyati anyamisham asya mahimanam iti vitashokaha. Although the two birds are in the same tree, the eating bird is fully engrossed with anxiety and moroseness as the enjoyer of the fruits of the tree. But if in some way or other he turns his face to his friend, who is the Lord and who knows his glories, who is the Lord and knows his glories, at once the suffering bird becomes free from all anxieties. Arjuna has now turned his face towards his eternal friend Krishna, and is understanding the Bhagavad Gita from him. And thus, hearing from Krishna, he can understand the supreme glories of the Lord and be free from lamentation. Arjuna is advised herewith by the Lord not to lament for the bodily change of his old grandfather and his teacher. He should rather be happy to kill their bodies in the righteous fight, so that they may be cleansed at once of all reactions from various bodily activities. One who lays down his life on the sacrificial altar or in the proper battlefield is at once cleansed of bodily reactions and promoted to a higher status of life. So there was no cause for Arjuna's lamentation. Text 23. Nainam chindanti shastrani nainam dahati pavakaha na chainam kledayantyapo na shoshayati marutaha. Synonyms: na, never. Enam, unto this soul. Chindanti, can cut into pieces. Shastrani, all weapons. Na, never. Enam, unto this soul. Dahati, burns. Pavakaha, fire. Na, never. Cha, also. Enam, unto this soul. Kledayanti, moistens. Apaha, water. Na, never. Shoshayati, dries. Marutaha, wind. Translation and purport by Vishwaguru Srila Prabhupada. Translation: The soul can never be put in sorry. The soul can never be cut into pieces by any weapon, nor can he be burned by fire, nor moistened by water, nor withered by the wind. Purport: All kinds of weapons, swords, flames, rains, tornadoes, etc., are unable to kill the spirit soul. It appears that there were many kinds of weapons made of earth, water, air, ether, etc., in addition to the modern weapons of fire. Even the nuclear weapons of the modern age are classified as fire weapons, but formerly there were other weapons made of all different types of material elements. Firearms were counteracted by water weapons, which are now unknown to modern science. Nor do modern scientists have knowledge of tornado weapons. Nevertheless, the soul can never be cut into pieces nor annihilated by any number of weapons, regardless of scientific devices. Nor was it ever possible to cut the individual souls from the original soul. The Mayavadi, however, cannot describe how the individual soul evolved from ignorance and consequently became covered by illusory energy. Because they are atomic individual souls, Sanatana, eternally, they are prone to be covered by the illusory energy, and thus they become separated from the association of the Supreme Lord, just as the sparks of the fire, although one in quality with the fire, are prone to be extinguished when out of the fire. In the Varaha Purana, the living entities are described as separated parts and parcels of the Supreme. They are eternally so, according to the Bhagavad Gita also. So, even after being liberated from illusion, the living entity remains a separate identity, as is evident from the teachings of the Lord to Arjuna. Arjuna became liberated by the knowledge received from Krishna, but he never became one with Krishna. Text 24. अच्छेद्योऽयं मदाह्योऽयम् अक्लेद्योष्योष्य एव च नित्यः सर्वगतस्थाणुर् अचलोऽयं सनातनः. Synonyms: Achedyaha, unbreakable. Ayam, this soul. Adahyaha, cannot be burned. Ayam, this soul. Akledyaha, insoluble. Ashoshyaha, cannot be dried. Eva, certainly. Cha, and. Nityaha, everlasting. Sarvagataha, all pervading. Sthanuhu, unchangeable. Achalaha, immovable. Ayam, this soul. Sanatanaha, eternally the same. Translation and purport by Vishwaguru Srila Prabhupada. Translation: this individual soul is unbreakable and insoluble and can be neither burned nor dried. He is everlasting, all pervading, unchangeable, immovable, and eternally the same. Purport: all these qualifications of the atomic soul definitely prove that the individual soul is eternally the atomic particle of the spirit whole, and he remains the same atom eternally without change. The theory of monism is very difficult to apply in this case because the individual soul is never expected to become one homogeneously. After liberation from material contamination, the atomic soul may prefer to remain as a spiritual spark in the effulgent rays of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But the intelligent souls enter into the spiritual planets to associate with the personality of Godhead. The word Sarvagataha, all pervading, is significant because there is no doubt that living entities are all over God's creation. They live on the land, in the water, in the air, within the earth, and even within fire. The belief that they are sterilized in fire is not acceptable because it is clearly stated here that the soul cannot be burned by fire. Therefore, there is no doubt that there are living entities also in the sun planet with suitable bodies to live there. If the sun globe is uninhabited, then the word sarvagataha, living everywhere, becomes meaningless. Text 25. अव्यक्तोऽयमचिन्त्योऽयम् अविकार्योऽयमुच्यते तस्मादेवं विदित्वैनं नानुशोचितुमर्हसि. Synonyms: Avyaktaha, invisible. Ayam, this soul. Achintyaha, inconceivable. Ayam, this soul. Avikaryaha, unchangeable. Ayam, this soul. Uchyate, is said. Tasmat, therefore. Evam, like this. Viditva, knowing it well. Enam, this soul. Na, do not. Anushochitum, may lament over. Arhasi, you deserve. Translation and purport by Vishwaguru Srila Prabhupada. Translation: it is said that the soul is invisible, inconceivable, immutable, and unchangeable. Knowing this, you should not lament, you should not grieve for the body. Purport: as described previously, the magnitude of the soul is so small for our material calculation that he cannot be even seen by the most powerful microscope. Therefore, he is invisible. As far as the soul's existence is concerned, no one can establish his existence experimentally beyond the proof of Shruti or Vedic wisdom. We have to accept this truth because there is no other source of understanding the existence of the soul, although it is a fact by perception. There are many things we have to accept solely on grounds of superior authority. No one can deny the existence of his father based upon the authority of his mother. There is no other source of understanding the identity of the father except by the authority of the mother. Similarly, there is no other source of understanding the soul except by studying the Vedas. In other words, the soul is inconceivable by human experimental knowledge. The soul is consciousness and conscious. That also is the statement of the Vedas, and we have to accept that. Unlike the bodily changes, there is no change in the soul. As eternally unchangeable, the soul remains atomic in comparison to the infinite Supreme Soul. The Supreme Soul is infinite, and the atomic soul is infinitesimal. Therefore, the infinitesimal soul, being unchangeable, can never become equal to the infinite soul or the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This concept is repeated in the Vedas in different ways just to confirm the stability of the conception of the soul. Repetition of something is necessary in order that we understand the matter thoroughly without error. We shall continue to read tomorrow. Thank you for your time. One more important announcement. If you have not yet submitted your Vyasa Puja offering, please submit it in the next 2 days. 25th is the last day to submit your Vyasa Puja literary offerings. Don't miss out. I have shared the link on various groups. If you don't have the link, please message me. And if you want to know how to write Vyasa Puja offering, please message me. Please share one or two learnings from today's reading session with me personally on WhatsApp. Thank you very much. Granthara Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai. Vishwaguru Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna.
Hare
Aya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Reading from Bhagavad Gita as it is by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Chapter 2, Contents of the Gita summarized. Text 26. अथ चैनं नित्यजातं नित्यं वा मन्यसे मृतं तथापि त्वं महाबाहो नैनं शोचितुमर्हसि. Synonyms. Atha, however, if, however, cha, also, enam, this soul, nityajatam, always born, nityam, forever, va, either, manyase, so think, mritam, dead, tathapi, still, tvam, you, mahabaho, O mighty armed one, na, never, enam, about the soul, shochitum, to lament, arhasi, deserve. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Vishwaguru Srila Prabhupada. Translation. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, if, however, you think that the soul is perpetually born and always dies, still you have no reason to lament, O mighty armed. Purport. There is always a class of philosophers, almost akin to the Buddhists, who do not believe in the separate existence of the soul beyond the body. When Lord Krishna spoke the Bhagavad Gita, it appears that such philosophers existed, and they were known as Lokaitikas and Vaibhashikas. These philosophers maintained that life symptoms or soul takes place at a certain mature condition of material combination. The modern material scientist and materialist philosophers also think similarly. According to them, the body is a combination of physical elements, and at a certain stage, the life symptoms develop by interaction of the physical and chemical elements. The science of anthropology is based on this philosophy. Currently, many pseudo religions, now becoming fashionable in America, are also adhering to this philosophy, as well as to the nihilistic, non devotional Buddhist sects. Even if Arjuna did not believe in the existence of the soul, as in the Vaibhashika philosophy, there would still have been no cause for lamentation. No one laments the loss of a certain bulk of chemicals and stops discharging his prescribed duty. On the other hand, in modern science and scientific warfare, so many tons of chemicals are wasted for achieving victory over the enemy. According to the Vaibhashika philosophy, the so called soul or Atma vanishes along with the deterioration of the body. So, in any case, whether Arjuna accepted the Vedic conclusion that there is an atomic soul, or whether he did not believe in the existence of the soul, he had no reason to lament. According to this theory, since there are so many living entities generating out of matter every moment, and so many of them are being vanquished every moment, there is no need to grieve for such an incidence. However, since he was not risking rebirth of the soul, Arjuna had no reason to be afraid of being affected with sinful reactions due to his killing his grandfather and teacher. But at the same time, Krishna sarcastically addressed Arjuna as Mahabahu, mighty armed, because he, at least, did not accept the theory of the Vaibhashikas, which leaves aside the Vedic wisdom. As a Kshatriya, Arjuna belonged to the Vedic culture and it behooved him to continue to follow its principles. Text 27. जातस्य हि ध्रुवो मृत्युर्ध्रुवं जन्म मृतस्य च तस्मादपरिहार्येथे न त्वं शोचितुमर्हसि. Synonyms: Jatasya, one who has taken his birth, he, certainly, Dhruvaha, a fact, Mrityuhu, death, Dhruvam, it is also a fact, Janma, birth, Mritasya, of the dead, Cha, also, Tasmat, therefore, Apariharye, for that which is unavoidable, Arthe, in the matter of, Na, do not, Tvam, you, Shochitum, to lament, Arhasi, deserve. Translation and purport by Vishwaguru Srila Prabhupada. Translation: For one who has taken his birth, death is certain, and for one who is dead, birth is certain. Therefore, in the unavoidable discharge of your duty, you should not lament. Purport: One has to take birth according to one's activities of life, and after finishing one term of activities, one has to die to take birth for the next. In this way, the cycle of birth and death is revolving, one after the other, without liberation. This cycle of birth and death does not, however, support unnecessary murder, slaughter, and war. But at the same time, violence and war are inevitable factors in human society for keeping law and order. The Battle of Kurukshetra, being the will of the Supreme, was an inevitable event, and to fight for the right cause is the duty of a Kshatriya. Why should he be afraid of or aggrieved at the death of his relatives, since he was discharging his proper duty? He did not deserve to break the law, thereby becoming subjected to the reactions of sinful acts, of which he was so afraid. By discharging the by avoiding the discharge of his proper duty, he would not be able to stop the death of his relatives, and he would be degraded due to his selection of the wrong path of action. Text 28. अव्यक्तादीनि भूतानि व्यक्तमध्यानि भारत अव्यक्तनिधनान्येव तत्र का परिदेवना. Synonyms: Avyaktadini, in the beginning, unmanifested. Bhutani, all that are created. Vyakta, manifested. Madhyani, in the middle. Bharata, O descendant of Bharata. Avyakta, non-manifested. Nidhanani, all that are vanquished. Eva, it is all like that. Tatra, therefore. Ka, what? Paridevana, lamentation. Translation and purport by Vishwaguru Srila Prabhupada. Translation: all created beings are unmanifest in their beginning, manifest in their interim state, and unmanifest again when they are annihilated. So, what need is there for lamentation? Purport: accepting that there are two classes of philosophers, one believing in the existence of soul and the other not believing in the existence of the soul, there is no cause for lamentation in either case. Non believers in the existence of the soul are called atheists by followers of Vedic wisdom. Yet, even if, for argument's sake, we accept the atheistic theory, there is still no cause for lamentation. Apart from the separate existence of the soul, the material elements remain unmanifested before creation. From this subtle state of unmanifestation comes manifestation, just as from ether air is generated, from air fire is generated, from fire water is generated, and from water earth becomes manifested. From the earth, many varieties of manifestations take place. Take, for example, a big skyscraper manifested from the earth. When it is dismantled, the manifestation becomes again unmanifested and remains as atoms in the ultimate stage. The law of conservation of energy remains, but in course of time things are manifested and unmanifested. That is the difference. Then what cause is there for lamentation either in the stage of manifestation or unmanifestation? Somehow or other, even in the unmanifested stage, things are not lost. Both at the beginning and at the end, all elements remain unmanifested, and only in the middle are they manifested, and this does not make any real material difference. And if we accept the Vedic conclusion as stated in the Bhagavad Gita, Antavanta ime dehaha, that these material bodies are perishable in due course of time, but that soul is eternal, then we must remember always that the body is like a dress. Therefore, why lament the changing of a dress? The material body has no factual existence in relation to the eternal soul. It is something like a dream. In a dream, we may think of flying in the sky or sitting on a chariot as a king, but when we wake up, we can see that we are neither in the sky nor seated on the chariot. The Vedic wisdom encourages self realization on the basis of the non existence of the material body. Therefore, in either case, whether one believes in the existence of the soul or one does not believe in the existence of the soul, there is no cause for lamentation for loss of the body. Text 29. Ascharyavat pashyati kaschidенम आश्चर्यवद् वदति तथैव चान्यः आश्चर्यवच्चैनमन्यः शृणोति श्रुत्वाप्येनं वेद न चैव कश्चित्. Synonyms: Ashcharyavat, amazing; Pashyati, see; Kaschit, some; Enam, this soul; Ashcharyavat, amazing; Vadati, speak; Tatha, there; Eva, certainly; cha also, anyah others, ascharyavat similarly amazing, cha also, enam this soul, anyah others, shrunoti hear, shrutva having heard, api even, enam this soul, veda do know, na never, cha and, eva certainly, kaschit anyone. Translation and purport by Vishwaguru Srila Prabhupada. Translation: some look on the soul as amazing, some describe him as amazing, and some hear of him as amazing, while others, even after hearing about him, cannot understand him at all. Purport: since Gita Upanishad is largely based on the principles of the Upanishads, it is not surprising to also find this passage in the Katha Upanishad. श्रवणायापि बभूर्यो न लभ्यः शृण्वतोऽपि बहवो यन विद्युः आश्चर्यो वक्ता कुशलोऽस्य लब्धा आश्चर्यो ज्ञाता कुशलानुशिष्टः. The fact that the atomic soul is within the body of a gigantic animal, in the body of a gigantic banyan tree, and also in the microbic germs, millions and billions of which occupy only an inch of space, is certainly very amazing. Men with a poor fund of knowledge and men who are not austere cannot understand the wonders of the individual atomic spark of spirit, even though it is explained by the greatest authority of knowledge who imparted lessons even to Brahma, the first living being in the universe. Owing to a gross material conception of things, most men in this age cannot imagine how such a small particle can become both so great and so small. So men look at the soul proper as wonderful either by constitution or by description. Illusioned by the material energy, people are so engrossed in subject matter for sense gratification that they have very little time to understand the question of self understanding, even though it is a fact that without this self understanding, all activities result in ultimate defeat in the struggle for existence. Perhaps one has no idea that one must think of the soul and also make a solution of the material miseries. Some people who are inclined to hear about the soul may be attending lectures in good association, but sometimes, owing to ignorance, they are misguided by acceptance of the super soul and the atomic soul as one without distinction of magnitude. It is very difficult to find a man who perfectly understands the position of the soul, the supersoul, the atomic soul, their respective functions, relationships, and all other major and minor details. And it is still more difficult to find a man who has actually derived full benefit from knowledge of the soul and who is able to describe the position of the soul in different aspects. But if, somehow or other, one is able to understand the subject matter of the soul, then one's life is successful. The easiest process for understanding the subject matter of self, however, is to accept the statements of the Bhagavad Gita spoken by the greatest authority, Lord Krishna, without being deviated by other theories. But it also requires a great deal of penance and sacrifice, either in this life or in the previous ones, before one is able to accept Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Krishna can, however, be known as such by the causeless mercy of the pure devotee and by no other way. Text 30. Dehi nityam avadhyoyam dehe sarvasya bharata tasmat sarvani bhutani natvam shochitum arhasi. Synonyms: Dehi, the owner of the material body. Nityam, eternally. Avadhyaha, cannot be killed. Ayam, this soul. Dehe, in the body. Sarvasya, of everyone. Bharata, O descendant of Bharata. Tasmat, therefore. Sarvani, all. Bhutani, living entities that are born. Na, never. Tvam, yourself. Shochitum, to lament. Arhasi, deserve. Translation and purport by Vishwaguru Srila Prabhupada. Translation: O descendant of Bharata, he who dwells in the body is eternal and can never be slain. Therefore, you need not grieve for any creature. Purport: The Lord now concludes the chapter of instruction on the immutable spirit soul. In describing the immortal soul in various ways, Lord Krishna establishes that the soul is immortal and the body is temporary. Therefore, Arjuna, as a Kshatriya, should not abandon his duty out of fear that his grandfather and teacher, Bhishma and Drona, will die in the battle. On the authority of Sri Krishna, one has to believe that there is a soul different from the material body, not that there is no such thing as soul, or that living symptoms develop at a certain stage of material maturity resulting from the interaction of chemicals. Though the soul is immortal, violence is not encouraged, but at the time of war, it is not discouraged when there is actual need for it. That need must be justified in terms of the sanction of the Lord and not capriciously. Text 31. स्वधर्मम् अपि चावेक्ष्य न विकम्पितुमर्हसि धर्म्याद्धि युद्धाश्रेयोऽन्यत् क्षत्रियस्य न विद्यते. Synonyms: Swadharmam, one's own religious principles. Api, also. Cha, indeed. Avekshya, considering. Na, never. Vikampitum, to hesitate. Arhasi, you deserve. Dharmyat, from religious principles. He, indeed. Yuddhat, of fighting. Shreyaha, better engagements. Anyat, anything else. Kshatriyasya, of the Kshatriya. Na, does not. Vidyate, exist. Translation and purport by Vishwaguru Srila Prabhupada. Considering your specific duty as a Kshatriya, you should know that there is no better engagement for you than fighting on religious principles, and so there is no need for hesitation. Purport: Out of the four orders of social administration, the second order, for the matter of good administration, is called Kshatriya. Kshat means herd, and one who gives protection from harm is called Kshatriya. Trayate, to give protection. The Kshatriyas are trained for killing in the forest. A Kshatriya would go into the forest and challenge a tiger face to face and fight with the tiger with his sword. When the tiger was killed, it would be offered the royal order of cremation. This system is being followed even up to the present day by the Kshatriya kings of Jaipur state. The Kshatriyas are specially trained for challenging and killing because religious violence is sometimes a necessary factor. Therefore, Kshatriyas are never meant for accepting directly the order of sannyasa or renunciation. Non-violence in politics may be a diplomacy, but it is never a factor or principle. In the religious law books, it is stated, Ahaveshu mitho anyonyam jigamsanto mahikshitaha yuddhamana param shaktya swargam yanti aparanmukhaha yajneshu pashavo brahman हन्यन्ते सतम द्विजः सततं द्विजैः संकृताः kila mantraischa tepi swargam avapnuvan. In the battlefield, a king or kshatriya, while fighting another king envious of him, is eligible for achieving heavenly planets after death, as the Brahmanas also attain the heavenly planets by sacrificing animals in the sacrificial fire. Therefore, killing on the battle on the religious principle and the killing of animals in the sacrificial fire are not at all considered to be acts of violence because everyone is benefited by the religious principles involved. The animal sacrificed gets a human life immediately without undergoing the gradual evolutionary process from one form to another, and the Kshatriyas killed in the battlefield also attain the heavenly planets, as do the Brahmanas who attain them by offering sacrifice. There are two kinds of swadharmas, specific duties. As long as one is not liberated, one has to perform the duties of that particular body in accordance with religious principles in order to achieve liberation. When one is liberated, one's swadharma, specific duty, becomes spiritual and is not in the material bodily concept. In the bodily conception of life, there are specific duties for the Brahmanas and Kshatriyas respectively, and such duties are unavoidable. Swadharma is ordained by the Lord, and this will be clarified in the fourth chapter. On the bodily plane, Swadharma is called Varnashrama Dharma, or man's stepping stone for spiritual understanding. Human civilization begins from the stage of Varnashrama Dharma, or specific duties, in terms of the specific modes of nature of the body obtained. Discharging one's specific duty in any field of action in accordance with Varnashrama Dharma serves to elevate one to a higher status of life. Text 32. यदृच्छया चोपपन्नं स्वर्गद्वारमपावृतं सुखिनः क्षत्रियाः पार्था लभन्ते युद्धमीदृशम्. Synonyms. Yadrichaya by its own accord. Cha also. Upapannam arrived at. Swarga heavenly planet. Dwaram door. Apavritam wide open. Sukhinaha very happy. Kshatriyaha the members of the royal order. Partha O son of Pritha. Labhante do achieve. Yuddham war. Idrisham like this. Translation and purport by Vishwaguru Srila Prabhupada. Translation. O Partha, happy are the Kshatriyas to whom such fighting opportunities come unsought, opening for them the doors of the heavenly planets. Purport. As Supreme Teacher of the world, Lord Krishna condemns the attitude of Arjuna, who said, I do not find any good in this fighting. It will cause perpetual habitation in hell. Such statements by Arjuna were due to ignorance only. He wanted to become non-violent in the discharge of his specific duty. For a Kshatriya to be in the battlefield and to become non-violent is the philosophy of fools. In the Parashara Smriti, or religious codes made by Parashara, the great sage and father of Vyasadeva, it is stated, Kshatriyo hi praja rakshan shastrapani pradandayan निर्जित्य परसैन्यादि क्षितिं धर्मेण पालयेत्. The Kshatriya's duty is to protect the citizens from all kinds of difficulties, and for that reason he has to apply violence in suitable cases for law and order. Therefore, he has to conquer the soldiers of inimical kings, and thus with religious principles he should rule over the world. Considering all aspects, Arjuna had no reason to refrain from fighting. If he should conquer his enemies, he would enjoy the kingdom, and if he should die in the battle, he would be elevated to the heavenly planets, whose doors were wide open to him. Fighting would be for his benefit in either case. Text 33. अथ चेत्त्वम् इमं धर्म्यं सङ्ग्रामं न करिष्यसि ततः स्वधर्मं कीर्तिं च हित्वा पापमवाप्स्यसि. Synonyms. Atha, therefore, chet, if, tvam, you, imam, this, dharmyam, religious duty, sangramam, fighting, na, do not, karishyasi, perform, tataha, then, swadharmam, your religious duty, kirtim, reputation, cha, also, hitva, losing, papam, sinful reaction, avapsyasi, do gain. Translation and purport by Vishwaguru Srila Prabhupada. Translation. If, however, you do not fight this religious war, then you will certainly incur sins for neglecting your duties and thus lose your reputation as a fighter. Purport. Arjuna was a famous fighter, and he attained fame by fighting many great demigods, including even Lord Shiva. After fighting and defeating Lord Shiva in the dress of a hunter, Arjuna pleased the Lord and received as a reward a weapon called Pashupata Astra. Everyone knew that he was a great warrior. Even Dronacharya gave him benediction and awarded him the special weapon by which he could kill even his teacher. So he was credited with so many military certificates from many authorities, including his adopted father Indra, the heavenly king. But if he abandoned the battle, he would not only neglect his specific duty as a Kshatriya, but he would lose all his fame and good name and thus prepare his royal road to hell. In other words, he would go to hell not by fighting, but by withdrawing from battle. We will continue to read tomorrow. If you have not yet submitted your Vyasa Puja offering, please do it immediately. If you have any doubts regarding this, contact me. ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय. ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भगवद गीता की जय. विश्व गुरु श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय. Hare Krishna. Welcome all of you for today's Bhagavad Gita reading session. Let us begin with prayers. नमा ॐ विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिन्निति नामिने नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्णा हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे. Reading from Bhagavad Gita as it is by His Divine Grace Abhay Charanaраvinda Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada. Chapter 2 entitled Contents of the Gita Summarized. Text 34. Akirtim chapi bhutani kathayishyanti te vyayam sambhavitasya cha kirtir maranadatirichyate. Synonyms. Akirtim, infamy, cha, also, api, over and above, bhutani, all people, kathayishyanti, will speak, te, of you, avyayam, forever, sambhavitasya, for a respectable man, cha, also, akirtihi, ill fame, maranat, than death, atirichyate, becomes more than. Translation and purport by Vishwaguru Srila Prabhupada. Translation. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, people will always speak of your infamy, and for one who has been honored, dishonor is worse than death. Purport. Both as friend and philosopher to Arjuna, Lord Krishna now gives his final judgment regarding Arjuna's refusal to fight. The Lord says, Arjuna, if you leave the battlefield, people will call you a coward even before your actual flight. And if you think that people may call you bad names, but that you will save your life by fleeing the battlefield, then my advice is that you'd do better to die in the battle. For a respectable man like you, ill fame is worse than death. So you should not flee for fear of your life. Better to die in the battle. That will save you from the ill fame of misusing my friendship and from losing your prestige in society. So the final judgment of the Lord was for Arjuna to die in the battle and not withdraw. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare. I'm sorry, there is some problem. Just a minute. We will continue to read text 35. भयाद्रणादुपरतं मंस्यन्ते त्वां महारथाः येषां च त्वं बहुमतो भूत्वा यास्यसि लाघवम्. Synonyms: Bhayat, out of fear; Ranat, from the battlefield; Uparatam, ceased; Mamsyante, will consider; Tvam, unto you; Maharathaha, the great generals; Yesham, of those who; Cha, also; Tvam, you; Bahumataha, in great estimation; Bhutva, will become; Yasyasi, will go; Laghavam, decreased in value. Translation and purport by Vishwaguru Srila Prabhupada. Translation: The great generals who have highly esteemed your name and fame will think that you have left the battlefield out of fear only, and thus they will consider you a coward. Purport: Lord Krishna continued to give his verdict to Arjuna. Do not think that the great generals like Duryodhana, Karna, and other contemporaries will think that you have left the battlefield out of compassion for your brothers and grandfather. They will think that you have left out of fear for your life, and thus their high estimation of your personality will go to hell. Text 36. अवाच्यवादांश्च बहून् वदिष्यन्ति तवाहिताः निन्दन्तस्तव सामर्थ्यं ततो दुःखतरं नु किम्. Synonyms: Avachya, unkind; Vadan, fabricated words; Cha, also; Bahun, many; Vadishyanti, will say; Tava, your; Ahitaha, enemies; Nindantaha, while vilifying; Tava, your; Samarthyam, ability; Tataha, thereafter; Dukkhataram, more painful; Nu, of course; Kim, what is there? Translation: Your enemies will describe you in many unkind words and scorn your ability. What could be more painful for you? Purport: Lord Krishna was astonished in the beginning at Arjuna's uncalled for plea for compassion, and he described his compassion as befitting the non Aryans. Now, in so many words, he has proved his statements against Arjuna's so called compassion. Text 37. हतो वा प्राप्स्यसि स्वर्गं जित्वा वा भोक्ष्यसे महीम् तस्मादुत्तिष्ठ कौन्तेय युद्धाय कृतनिश्चयः. Synonyms: Hataha, being killed. Va, either. Prapsyasi, you gain. Swargam, the heavenly kingdom. Jitva, by conquering. Va, or. Bhokshyase, you enjoy. Mahim, the world. Tasmat, therefore. Uttishta, get up. Kaunteya, O son of Kunti. Yudhaya, to fight. Krita, determination. Nishchayaha, uncertainty. Translation: O son of Kunti, either you will be killed on the battlefield and attain the heavenly planets, or you will conquer and enjoy the earthly kingdom. Therefore, get up and fight with determination. Purport: Even though there was no certainty of victory for Arjuna's side, he still had to fight. For, even being killed there, he could be elevated into the heavenly planets. Text 38. सुखदुःखे समे कृत्वा लाभालाभौ जयाजयौ ततो युद्धाय युज्यस्व नैवं पापमवाप्स्यसि. Synonyms: Sukha, happiness; Dukhe, in distress; Same, in equanimity; Krutva, doing so; Labha, labhau, both in loss and profit; Jaya, jayau, both in defeat and victory; Tataha, thereafter; Yudhaya, for the sake of fighting; Yujyasva, do fight; Na, never; Evam, in this way; Papam, sinful reaction; Avapsyasi, you will gain. Translation and purport by Vishwaguru Srila Prabhupada. Translation: Do thou fight for the sake of fighting, without considering happiness or distress, loss or gain, victory or defeat. And by so doing, you will never incur sin. Purport: Lord Krishna now directly says that Arjuna should fight for the sake of fighting because he desires the battle. There is no consideration of happiness or distress, profit or gain, victory or defeat in the activities of Krishna consciousness. That everything should be performed for the sake of Krishna is transcendental consciousness. So there is no reaction to material activities. He who acts for his own sense gratification, either in goodness or in passion, is subject to the reaction, good or bad. But he who has completely surrendered himself in the activities of Krishna consciousness is no longer obliged to anyone, nor is he a debtor to anyone, as one is in the ordinary course of activities. It is said, देवर्षिभूताप्त नृणां पितॄणां न किङ्करो नायमृणी च राजन् सर्वात्मना यः शरणं शरण्यं गतो मुकुन्दं परिहृत्य कर्तम्. Srimad Bhagavatam, 11th Canto, 5th Chapter, 41st Shloka. Anyone who has completely surrendered unto Krishna, Mukunda, giving up all other duties, is no longer a debtor, nor is he obliged to anyone, not the demigods, nor the sages, nor the people in general, nor kinsmen, nor humanity, nor forefathers. That is the indirect hint given by Krishna to Arjuna in this verse, and the matter will be more clearly explained in the following verses. Text 39. येषा ते विहिता साङ्ख्ये बुद्धिर्योगे त्विमां शृणु बुद्ध्या युक्तो यया पार्थ कर्मबन्धं प्रहास्यसि. Synonyms. Yesha, all these. Te, unto you. Abhihita, described. Sankhye, by analytical study. Buddhihi, intelligence. Yoge, work without fruitive result. Tu, but. Imam, this. Shrunu, just hear. Buddhya, by intelligence. Yuktaha, doubtailed. Yaya, by which? Partha, O son of Pritha. Karmabandham, bondage of reaction. Prahasyasi, you can be released from. Translation and purport by Vishwaguru Srila Prabhupada. Translation. Thus far, I have declared to you the analytical knowledge of Sankhya philosophy. Now listen to the knowledge of yoga, whereby one works without fruitive result. O son of Pritha, when you act by such intelligence, you can free yourself from the bondage of works. Purport. According to the Nirukti or the Vedic dictionary, Sankhya means that which describes phenomena in detail, and Sankhya refers to that philosophy which describes the real nature of the soul, and yoga involves controlling the senses. Arjuna's proposal not to fight was based on sense gratification. Forgetting his prime duty, he wanted to cease fighting because he thought that by not killing his relatives and kinsmen, he would be happier than by enjoying the kingdom by conquering his cousins and brothers, the sons of Dhritarashtra. In both ways, the basic principles were for sense gratification. Happiness derived from conquering them and happiness derived by seeing kinsmen alive are both on the basis of personal sense gratification, for there is a sacrifice of wisdom and duty. Krishna therefore wanted to explain to Arjuna that by killing the body of his grandfather, he would not be killing the soul proper, and he explained that all individual persons, including the Lord Himself, are eternal individuals. They were individuals in the past, they are individuals in the present, and they will continue to remain individuals in the future. Because all of us are individual souls eternally, and we simply change our bodily dress in different manners. But actually, we keep our individuality even after liberation from the bondage of material dress. An analytical study of the soul and the body has been very graphically explained by Lord Krishna. And this descriptive knowledge of the soul and the body from different angles of vision has been described here as Sankhya in terms of the Nirukti dictionary. This Sankhya has nothing to do with the Sankhya philosophy of the atheist Kapila. Long before the impostor Kapila's Sankhya, the Sankhya philosophy was expounded in the Srimad Bhagavatam by the true Lord Kapila, the incarnation of Lord Krishna, who explained it to his mother Devahuti. It is clearly explained by him that the Purusha or the Supreme Lord is active and that he creates by looking over the Prakriti. This is accepted in the Vedas and in the Gita. The description in the Vedas indicates that the Lord glanced over the Prakriti or nature and impregnated it with atomic individual souls. All these individuals are working in the material world for sense gratification, and under the spell of material energy, they are thinking of being enjoyers. This mentality is dragged to the last point of liberation when the living entity wants to become one with the Lord. This is the last snare of Maya or sense gratificatory illusion, and it is only after many, many births of such sense gratificatory activities that a great soul surrenders unto Vasudeva, Lord Krishna, thereby fulfilling the search after the ultimate truth. Arjuna has already accepted Krishna as his spiritual master by surrendering himself unto him. Shishyasteham shadhimam tvam prapannam. Consequently, Krishna will now tell him about the working process in Buddhi Yoga or Karma Yoga, or in other words, the practice of devotional service only for the sense gratification of the Lord. This Buddhi Yoga is clearly explained in chapter 10, verse 10, as being direct communion with the Lord, who is sitting as Paramatma in everyone's heart. But such communion does not take place without devotional service. One who is therefore situated in devotional or transcendental loving service to the Lord, or in other words, in Krishna consciousness, attains to this stage of Buddhi Yoga by the special grace of the Lord. The Lord says, therefore, that only to those who are always engaged in devotional service out of transcendental love does He award the pure knowledge of devotion in love. In that way, the devotee can reach Him easily in the ever blissful kingdom of God. Thus, the Buddhi Yoga mentioned in this verse is the devotional service of the Lord, and the word Sankhya mentioned herein has nothing to do with the atheistic Sankhya Yoga enunciated by the impostor Kapila. One should not, therefore, misunderstand that the Sankhya Yoga mentioned herein has any connection with the atheistic Sankhya. Nor did that philosophy have any influence during that time. Nor would Lord Krishna care to mention such godless philosophical speculations. Real Sankhya philosophy is described by Lord Kapila in the Srimad Bhagavatam, but even that Sankhya has nothing to do with the current topics. Here, Sankhya means analytical description of the body and the soul. Lord Krishna made an analytical description of the soul just to bring Arjuna to the point of Buddhi Yoga or Bhakti Yoga. Therefore, Lord Krishna's Sankhya and Lord Kapila's Sankhya, as described in the Bhagavatam, are one and the same. They are all Bhakti Yoga. He said, therefore, that only the less intelligent class of men make a distinction between Sankhya Yoga and Bhakti Yoga. Of course, atheistic Sankhya Yoga has nothing to do with Bhakti Yoga, yet the unintelligent claim that the atheistic Sankhya Yoga is referred to in the Bhagavad Gita. One should therefore understand that Buddhi Yoga means to work in Krishna consciousness in the full bliss and knowledge of devotional service. One who works for the satisfaction of the Lord only, however difficult such work may be, he is working under the principles of Buddhi Yoga and finds himself always in transcendental bliss. By such transcendental engagement, one achieves all transcendental qualities automatically by the grace of the Lord, and thus his liberation is complete in itself without his making extraneous endeavors to acquire knowledge. There is much difference between work in Krishna consciousness and work for fruitive results, especially in the matter of sense gratification for achieving results in terms of family or material happiness. Buddhi Yoga is therefore the transcendental quality of the work that we perform. Text 40. नेहाभिक्रमनाशोऽस्ति प्रत्यवायो न विद्यते स्वल्पमप्यस्य धर्मस्य त्रायते महतो भयात्. Synonyms. Na, there is not. Iha, in this world. Abhikrama, endeavoring. Nashaha, loss. Asti, there is. Pratyavayaha, diminution. Na, never. Vidyate, there is. Swalpam, little. Api, although. Asya, of this. Dharmasya, of this occupation. Trayate, releases. Mahataha, of very great. Bhayat, from danger. Translation and purport by Vishwaguru Srila Prabhupada. Translation. In this endeavor, there is no loss or diminution, and a little advancement on this path can protect one from the most dangerous type of fear. Purport. Activity in Krishna consciousness, or acting for the benefit of Krishna without expectation of sense gratification, is the highest transcendental quality of work. Even a small beginning of such activity finds no impediment, nor can that small beginning be lost at any stage. Any work begun on the material plane has to be completed, otherwise, the whole attempt becomes a failure. But any work begun in Krishna consciousness has a permanent effect, even though not finished. The performer of such work is therefore not at a loss, even if his work in Krishna consciousness is incomplete. 1% done in Krishna consciousness bears permanent results, so that the next beginning is from the point of 2%, whereas in material activity, without 100% success, there is no profit. Ajamila performed his duty in some percentage of Krishna consciousness, but the result he enjoyed at the end was 100% by the grace of the Lord. There is a nice verse in this connection in Srimad Bhagavatam. त्यक्त्वा स्वधर्मं चरणाम्भुजं हरेत् भजन्न पक्कोतपते ततो यदि यत्र क्व वा भद्रमभूदमुष्य किम् को वार्थ आप्तो अभजतां स्वधर्मतः. If someone gives up self gratificatory pursuits and works in Krishna consciousness and then falls down on account of not completing his work, what loss is there on his part? And what can one gain if one performs his material activities perfectly? Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 5, verse 17. Or, as the Christians say, what profiteth a man if he gain the whole world, yet suffers the loss of his eternal soul? Material activities and their results end with the body, but work in Krishna consciousness carries the person again to Krishna consciousness even after the loss of the body. At least one is sure to have a chance in the next life of being born as a human being, either in the family of a great cultured Brahmana or in a rich aristocratic family that will give one a further chance for elevation. That is the unique quality of work done in Krishna consciousness. Text 41. व्यवसायात्मिका बुद्धिर्येकेह कुरु नन्दन बहुशाखा ह्यनन्ताश्च बुद्धयो व्यवसायिनाम्. Synonyms. Vyavasayatmika, resolute Krishna consciousness. Buddhihi, intelligence. Eka, only one. Iha, in this world. Kurunandana, O beloved child of the Kurus. Bahushakhaha, various branches. He, indeed. Anantaha, unlimited. Cha, also. Buddhayaha, intelligence. Avyavasayinam, of those who are not in Krishna consciousness. Translation and purport by Vishwaguru Srila Prabhupada. Translation. Those who are on this path are resolute in purpose, and their aim is one. O beloved child of the Kurus, the intelligence of those who are irresolute is many branched. Purport. A strong faith in Krishna consciousness that one should be elevated to the highest perfection of life is called Vyavasayatmika intelligence. The Chaitanya Charitamrita states, Shraddha Shabde Vishwasa Kahe Sudruda Nishchaya Krishne Bhakti Kaile Sarva Karma Kritahaya. Faith means unflinching trust in something sublime. When one is engaged in the duties of Krishna consciousness, he need not act in relationship to the material world, with obligations to family traditions, humanity, or nationality. Fruitive activities are the engagements of one's reactions from past good or bad deeds. When one is awake in Krishna consciousness, he need no longer endeavor for good results in his activities. When one is situated in Krishna consciousness, all activities are on the absolute plane, for they are no longer subject to dualities like good and bad. The highest perfection of Krishna consciousness is renunciation of the material conception of life. This state is automatically achieved by progressive Krishna consciousness. The resolute purpose of a person in Krishna consciousness is based on knowledge. Vasudeva Sarvamiti Samahatma Sudurlabhaha, by which one comes to know perfectly that Vasudeva or Krishna is the root of all manifested causes. As water on the root of a tree is automatically distributed to the leaves and branches, in Krishna consciousness one can render the highest service to everyone, namely self, family, society, country, humanity, etc. If Krishna is satisfied by one's actions, then everyone will be satisfied. Service in Krishna consciousness is, however, best practiced under the able guidance of a spiritual master who is a bona fide representative of Krishna, who knows the nature of the student and who can guide him to act in Krishna consciousness. As such, to be well versed in Krishna consciousness, one has to act firmly and obey the representative of Krishna, and one should accept the instruction of the bona fide spiritual master as one's mission in life. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur instructs us in his famous prayers for the spiritual master as follows: Yasya prasadat bhagavat prasado, yasya aprasadan nagati kutopi, ध्यायं स्तुवंस्तस्य यशस्त्रिसन्ध्यं Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vindam. By satisfaction of the spiritual master, the Supreme Personality of Godhead becomes satisfied. And by not satisfying the spiritual master, there is no chance of being promoted to the plane of Krishna consciousness. I should, therefore, meditate and pray for his mercy 3 times a day and offer my respectful obeisances unto him, my spiritual master. The whole process, however, depends on perfect knowledge of the soul beyond the conception of the body, not theoretically but practically, when there is no longer chance for sense gratification manifested in fruitive activities. One who is not firmly fixed in mind is diverted by various types of fruitive acts. We shall continue to read tomorrow. Thank you for your valuable time. And if you have not yet submitted your Vyasa Puja literary offering, please do it today without fail. Thank you. Granthara Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai, Vishwa Guru Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, everyone. Welcome all of you for today's Bhagavad Gita reading session. Let us begin with prayers. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Reading from Bhagavad Gita as it is by His Divine Grace Abhay Charanaravinda Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada. Chapter 2 entitled Contents of the Gita Summarized. Texts 42 and 43. यामिमां पुष्पितां वाचं प्रवदन्त्यविपश्चितः वेदवादरताः पार्था नान्यदस्तीति वादिनः कामात्मानः स्वर्गपरा जन्मकर्मफलप्रदां क्रियाविशेषबहुलां भोगैश्वर्यगतिं प्रति. Synonyms: Yamimam, all these, Pushpitam, flowery, Vacham, words, Pravadanti, say, Avipaschitaha, men with a poor fund of knowledge, Vedavadarataha, supposed followers of the Vedas, Partha, O son of Pratha, Na, never, Anyat, anything else, Asti, there is, Iti, this, Vadinaha, advocates, Kama, Atmanaha, desirous of sense gratification, Svargaparaha, aiming to achieve heavenly planets, Janma Karma Phala Pradam, resulting in fruitive action, good birth, etc. Kriya Vishesha, pompous ceremonies. Bahulam, various. Bhoga, sense enjoyment. Aishwarya, opulence. Gatim, progress. Prati, towards. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada. Translation: The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, men of small knowledge are very much attached to the flowery words of the Vedas, which recommend various fruitive activities for elevation to heavenly planets, resultant good birth, power, and so forth. Being desirous of sense gratification and opulent life, they say that there is nothing more than this. Purport by Vishwaguru Srila Prabhupada. People in general are not very intelligent, and due to their ignorance, they are most attached to the fruitive activities recommended in the Karma Kanda portions of the Vedas. They do not want anything more than sense gratificatory proposals for enjoying life in heaven, where wine and women are available and material opulence is very common. In the Vedas, many sacrifices are recommended for elevation to the heavenly planets, especially the Jyotishtoma sacrifices. In fact, it is stated that anyone desiring elevation to heavenly planets must perform these sacrifices, and men with a poor fund of knowledge think that this is the whole purpose of Vedic wisdom. It is very difficult for such inexperienced persons to be situated in the determined action of Krishna consciousness. As fools are attached to the flowers of poisonous trees without knowing the results of such attractions, similarly, unenlightened men are attracted by such heavenly opulence and the sense enjoyment thereof. In the Karma Kanda section of the Vedas, it is said that those who perform the four monthly penances become eligible to drink the Somarasa beverages to become immortal and happy forever. Even on this earth, some are very eager to have Somarasa to become strong and fit to enjoy sense gratifications. Such persons have no faith in liberation from material bondage, and they are very much attached to the pompous ceremonies of Vedic sacrifices. They are generally sensual and they do not want anything other than the heavenly pleasures of life. It is understood that there are gardens called Nandana Kanana, in which there is good opportunity for association with angelic, beautiful women and having a profuse supply of Somarasa wine. Such bodily happiness is certainly sensual. Therefore, there are those who are purely attached to material, temporary happiness as lords of the material world. Text 44. भोगैश्वर्यप्रसक्तानां तयापहृतचेतसाम् व्यवसायात्मिका बुद्धिः समाधौ न विधीयते. Synonyms: Bhoga, material enjoyment; Aishwarya, opulence; Prasaktanam, those who are so attached; Taya, by such things; Apahrita chetasam, bewildered in mind; Vyavasayatmika, fixed determination; Buddhihi, devotional service of the Lord; Samadho, in the controlled mind; Na, never; Vidhiyate, thus take place. Translation and purport by Vishwaguru Srila Prabhupada. Translation: in the minds of those who are too attached to sense enjoyment and material opulence, and who are bewildered by such things, the resolute determination of devotional service to the Supreme Lord does not take place. Purport: Samadhi means fixed mind. The Vedic dictionary, the Nirukti, says Samyag adhiyate asmin atmatattva yathatmyam. When the mind is fixed for understanding the self, it is called Samadhi. Samadhi is never possible for persons interested in material sense enjoyment, nor for those who are bewildered by such temporary things. They are more or less condemned by the process of material energy. Text 45. त्रैगुण्यविषया वेदा निस्त्रैगुण्यो भवार्जुन निर्द्वन्द्वो नित्यसत्त्वस्थो निर्योगक्षेम आत्मवान्. Synonyms: Traigunya, pertaining to the three modes of material nature; Vishayaha, on the subject matter; Vedaha, Vedic literatures; Nistraigунyaha, in a pure state of spiritual existence. Bhava, be; Arjuna, O Arjuna; Nirdvandvaha, free from the pains of opposites; Nitya Sattvasthaha, ever remaining in sattva or goodness; Niryogakshema, free from the thought of acquisition and preservation; Atmavan, established in the self. Translation and purport by Vishwaguru Srila Prabhupada. Translation: the Vedas mainly deal with the subject of the three modes of material nature. Rise above these modes, O Arjuna. Be transcendental to all of them. Be free from all dualities and from all anxieties for gain and safety, and be established in the self. Purport: all material activities involve actions and reactions in the three modes of material nature. They are meant for fruitive results, which cause bondage in the material world. The Vedas deal mostly with fruitive activities to gradually elevate the general public from the field of sense gratification to a position on the transcendental plane. Arjuna, as a student and friend of Lord Krishna, is advised to raise himself to the transcendental position of Vedanta philosophy, where, in the beginning, there is Brahma Jignasa, or questions on the supreme transcendence. All the living entities who are in the material world are struggling very hard for existence. For them, the Lord, after creation of the material world, gave the Vedic wisdom advising how to live and get rid of the material entanglement. When the activities for sense gratification, namely the Karma Kanda chapter, are finished, then the chance for spiritual realization is offered in the form of the Upanishads, which are part of different Vedas, as the Bhagavad Gita is a part of the fifth Veda, namely the Mahabharata. The Upanishads mark the beginning of transcendental life. As long as the material body exists, there are actions and reactions in the material modes. One has to learn tolerance in the face of dualities such as happiness and distress, or cold and warmth, and by tolerating such dualities, become free from anxieties regarding gain and loss. This transcendental position is achieved in full Krishna consciousness when one is fully dependent on the goodwill of Krishna. Text 46. यावानर्थ उदपाने सर्वतः सम्प्लुतोदके तावान् सर्वेषु वेदेषु ब्राह्मणस्य विजानतः. Synonyms: Yavan, all that. Arthaha is meant. Udapane, in a well of water. Sarvataha, in all respects. Sampluta udake, in a great reservoir of water. Tavan, similarly. Sarveshu, in all. Vedeshu, Vedic literatures. Brahmanasya, of the man who knows the supreme Brahman. Vijanataha, of one who is in complete knowledge. Translation and purport by Vishwaguru Srila Prabhupada. Translation: all purposes that are served by the small pond can at once be served by the great reservoirs of water. Similarly, all the purposes of the Vedas can be served to one who knows the purpose behind them. Purport: the rituals and sacrifices mentioned in the Karmakanda division of the Vedic literature are to encourage gradual development of self realization. And the purpose of self realization is clearly stated in the 15th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 15, verse 15. The purpose of studying the Vedas is to know Lord Krishna, the primeval cause of everything. So, self realization means understanding Krishna and one's eternal relationship with Him. The relationship of the living entities with Krishna is also mentioned in the 15th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. The living entities are parts and parcels of Krishna. Therefore, revival of Krishna consciousness by the individual living entity is the highest perfectional stage of Vedic knowledge. This is confirmed in the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 33, verse 7, as follows: Aho bata shvapachato gariyan yajjihvagre vartate nama tubhyam te pustapaste juhuvusasnurarya brahmano churnama grananti yete. O my Lord, a person who is chanting your holy name, although born of a low family like that of a Chandala, dog eater, is situated on the highest platform of self realization. Such a person must have performed all kinds of penances and sacrifices according to Vedic rituals and studied the Vedic literatures many, many times after taking his bath in all the holy places of pilgrimage. Such a person is considered to be the best of the Aryan family. So, one must be intelligent enough to understand the purpose of the Vedas without being attached to the rituals only, and must not desire to be elevated to the heavenly planets for a better quality of sense gratification. It is not possible for the common man in this age to follow all the rules and regulations of of the Vedic rituals and the injunctions of the Vedas, Vedantas, and the Upanishads. It, it requires much time, energy, knowledge, and resources to execute the purposes of the Vedas. This is hardly possible in this age. The best purpose of Vedic culture is served, however, by chanting the holy name of the Lord, as recommended by Lord Chaitanya, the deliverer of all fallen souls. When Lord Chaitanya was asked by a great Vedic scholar, Prakashananda Saraswati, why he, the Lord, was chanting the holy name of the Lord like a sentimentalist, instead of studying Vedanta philosophy, the Lord replied that his spiritual master found him to be a great fool, and thus he asked him to chant the holy name of Lord Krishna. He did so and became ecstatic like a madman. In this age of Kali, most of the population is foolish and not adequately educated to understand Vedanta philosophy. The best purpose of Vedanta philosophy is served by inoffensively chanting the holy name of the Lord. Vedanta is the last word in Vedic wisdom, and the author and knower of the Vedanta philosophy is Lord Krishna, and the highest Vedantist is the great soul who takes pleasure in chanting the holy name of the Lord. That is the ultimate purpose of all Vedic mysticism. Text 47. कर्मण्येवाधिकारस्ते मा फलेषु कदाचन मा कर्मफलहेतुर्भूर्मा ते सङ्गोऽस्त्वकर्मणि. Synonyms: Karmani, prescribed duties. Eva, certainly. Adhikaraha, right. Te, of you. Ma, never. Phaleshu, in the fruits. Kadachana, at any time. Ma, never. Karma phala, in the result of the work. Hetuhu, cause. Bhuhu, become. Ma, never. Te, of you. Sangaha, attachment. Astu, be there. Akarmani, in not doing. Translation and purport by Vishwaguru Srila Prabhupada. Translation: You have a right to perform your prescribed duty, but you are not entitled to the fruits of action. Never consider yourself to be the cause of the results of your activities, and never be attached to not doing your duty. Purport: There are three considerations here: prescribed duties, capricious work, and inaction. Prescribed duties refer to activities performed while one is in the modes of material nature. Capricious work means actions without the sanction of authority, and inaction means not performing one's prescribed duties. The Lord advised that Arjuna not be inactive, but that he perform his prescribed duty without being attached to the result. One who is attached to the result of his work is also the cause of the action. Thus, he is the enjoyer or sufferer of the result of such actions. As far as prescribed duties are concerned, they can be fitted into three subdivisions, namely routine work, emergency work, and desired activities. Routine work, in terms of the scriptural injunctions, is done without desire for results. As one has to do it, obligatory work is action in the mode of goodness. Work with results becomes the cause of bondage. Therefore, such work is not auspicious. Everyone has his proprietary right in regard to prescribed duties, but should act without attachment to the result. Such disinterested obligatory duties doubtlessly lead one to the path of liberation. Arjuna was therefore advised by the Lord to fight as a matter of duty without attachment to the result. His non participation in the battle is another side of attachment. Such attachment never leads one to the path of salvation. Any attachment, positive or negative, is cause for bondage. Inaction is sinful. Therefore, fighting as a matter of duty was the only auspicious path of salvation for Arjuna. Text 48. योगस्थः कुरु कर्माणि सङ्गं त्यक्त्वा धनञ्जय सिद्ध्यसिद्धयो समो भूत्वा समत्वं योग उच्यते. Synonyms: Yogasthah, steadfast in yoga. Kuru, perform. Karmani, your duty. Sangam, attachment. Tyaktva, having abandoned. Dhananjaya, O Dhananjaya. Siddhi Siddhyoho, in success and failure. Samaha, the same. Bhutva, having become. Samatvam, evenness of mind. Yogaha, yoga. Uchyate is called. Translation and purport by Vishwaguru Srila Prabhupada. Translation. Be steadfast in yoga, O Arjuna. Become, perform your duty and abandon all attachment to success or failure. Such evenness of mind is called yoga. Purport. Krishna tells Arjuna that he should act in yoga. And what is that yoga? Yoga means to concentrate the mind upon the Supreme by controlling the ever disturbing senses. And who is the Supreme? The Supreme is the Lord. And because he himself is telling Arjuna to fight, Arjuna has nothing to do with the results of the fight. Gain or victory are Krishna's concern. Arjuna is simply advised to act according to the dictation of Krishna. The following of Krishna's dictation is real yoga, and this is practiced in the process called Krishna consciousness. By Krishna consciousness only can one give up the sense of proprietorship. One has to become the servant of Krishna or the servant of the servant of Krishna. That is the right way to discharge duty in Krishna consciousness, which alone can help one to act in yoga. Arjuna is a Kshatriya, and as such, he is participating in the Varnashrama Dharma institution. It is said in the Vishnu Purana that in the Varnashrama Dharma, the whole aim is to satisfy Vishnu. No one should satisfy himself, as is the rule in the material world, but one should satisfy Krishna. So, unless one satisfies Krishna, one cannot correctly observe the principles of Varnashrama Dharma. Indirectly, Arjuna was advised to act as Krishna told him. Indirectly, Arjuna was advised to act as Krishna told him. Text 49. दूरेण ह्यवरं कर्म बुद्धियोगात् धनञ्जय बुद्धौ शरणमन्विच्छ कृपणाफलहेतवः. Synonyms. Durena, by discarding it at a long distance. He, certainly. Avaram, abominable. Karma, activities. Buddhi Yoga, on the strength of Krishna consciousness. Dhananjaya, O conqueror of wealth. Buddha, in such consciousness. Sharanam, full surrender. Anvicha, desire. Kripanaha, the misers. Phalahetavaha, those desiring fruitive action. Translation and purport by Vishwaguru Srila Prabhupada. Translation. O Dhananjaya, rid yourself of devotional service. O Dhananjaya, rid yourself of all fruitive activities by devotional service and surrender fully to that consciousness. Those who want to enjoy the fruits of their work are misers. Purport. One who has actually come to understand one's constitutional position as the eternal servitor of the Lord gives up all engagements save working in Krishna consciousness. As already explained, Buddhi Yoga means transcendental loving service to the Lord. Such devotional service is the right course of action for the living entity. Only misers desire to enjoy the fruit of their own work just to be further entangled in material bondage. Except for work in Krishna consciousness, all activities are abominable because they continually bind the worker to the cycle of birth and death. One should therefore Never desire to be the cause of work. Everything should be done in Krishna consciousness for the satisfaction of Krishna. Misers do not know how to utilize the assets of riches which they acquire by good fortune or by hard labor. One should spend all energies working in Krishna consciousness, and that will make one's life successful. Like the misers, unfortunate persons do not employ their human energy in the service of the Lord. Text 50. बुद्धियुक्तो जहातीह उभे सुकृतदुष्कृते तस्माद् योगाय युज्यस्व योगः कर्मसु कौशलम्. Synonyms: Buddhi Yuktaha, one who is engaged in devotional service. Jahati, can get rid of. Iha, in this life. Ubhe, in both. Sukruta Dushkrute, in good and bad results. Tasmat, therefore. Yogaya, for the sake of devotional service. Yujyasva, be so engaged. Yogaha, Krishna consciousness. Karmasu, in all activities. Kaushalam, art. Translation and purport by Vishwaguru Srila Prabhupada. Translation: a man engaged in devotional service rids himself of both good and bad actions, even in this life. Therefore, strive for yoga, O Arjuna, which is the art of all work. Purport: since time immemorial, each living entity has accumulated the various reactions of his good and bad work. As such, he is continuously ignorant of his real constitutional position. One's ignorance can be removed by the instruction of the Bhagavad Gita, which teaches one to surrender unto Lord Sri Krishna in all respects and become liberated from the chained victimization of action and reaction, birth after birth. Arjuna is therefore advised to act in Krishna consciousness, the purifying process of resultant action. We shall continue to read tomorrow. Please share your points of learning, striking points from today's reading with me personally or on the group. Thank you very much. And also, if you have not yet submitted your Vyasa Puja offering, please do it at the earliest. ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भगवद गीता की जय. विश्व गुरु श्रील प्रभुपाद की
Prabhupada ki
जय.
jai.
हरे कृष्ण.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Welcome all of you for today's Bhagavad Gita reading session. Let us begin with prayers. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Nitinamine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Let us offer our prayers to Jagannath, Baladev, and Subhadra Mai on this special occasion of Rath Namaha. Wish you all a very happy Jagannath Rath Yatra. Let us begin our reading. Reading from Bhagavad Gita as it is by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada, Chapter 2, entitled Contents of the Gita Summarized. Text 51. Karmajam buddhi yukta hi phalam tyaktva manishinaha janma bandha vinirmukta padam gacchantya namayam. Synonyms: Karmajam, because of fruitive activities. Buddhi yuktaha, being done in devotional service. He certainly phalam, results. Tyaktva, giving up. Manishinaha, devotees who are great sages. Janma bandha, the bondage of birth and death. Vinirmuktaha, liberated souls. Padam, position. Gachanti, reach. Anamayam, without miseries. Translation and purport by Vishwaguru Srila Prabhupada. Translation: The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, the wise engaged in devotional service take refuge in the Lord and free themselves from the cycle of birth and death by renouncing the fruits of action in the material world. In this way, they can attain that state beyond all miseries. Purport: The liberated living entities seek that place where there is no material miseries. The Bhagavatam says, Samashhrita ye padapallavaplavam महत्पदं पुण्ययशो मुरारेः भवाब्धिभु भवाम्बुधिर्वत्सपदं परं पदं यद्विपदां न तेषाम्. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, Chapter 14, Verse 58. For one who has accepted the boat of the lotus feet of the Lord, who is the shelter of the cosmic manifestation, and is famous as Mukunda, or the giver of Mukti, the ocean of the material world is like the water contained in a calf's hoof print. Parampadam, or the place where there are no material miseries, or Vaikuntha, is his goal, not the place where there is danger in every step of life. Owing to ignorance, one does not know that this material world is a miserable place where there are dangers at every step. Out of ignorance only, less intelligent persons try to adjust to the situation by fruitive activities, thinking that resultant actions will make them happy. They do not know that no kind of material body anywhere within the universe can give life without miseries. The miseries of life, namely birth, death, old age, and diseases, are present everywhere within the material world. But one who understands his real constitutional position as the eternal servitor of the Lord, and thus knows the position of the personality of Godhead, engages himself in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. Consequently, he becomes qualified to enter into the Vaikuntha planets, where there is neither material, miserable life, nor the influence of time and death. To know one's constitutional position means to know also the sublime position of the Lord. One who wrongly thinks that the living entity's position and the Lord's position are on the same level is to be understood to be in darkness and therefore unable to engage himself in the devotional service of the Lord. He becomes a Lord himself and thus paves the way for the repetition of birth and death. But one who understands that his position is to serve transfers himself to the service of the Lord at once, becomes eligible for Vaikuntha Loka. Service for the cause of the Lord is called Karma Yoga or Buddhi Yoga, or in plain words, devotional service to the Lord. Text 52. यदा ते मोहकलिलं बुद्धिर्व्यतिरतिष्यति तदा गन्तासि निर्वेदं श्रोतव्यस्य श्रुतस्य च. Synonyms: Yada, when, te, your, moha, illusory, kalilam, dense forest, buddhihi, transcendental service with intelligence, vyatiratishyati, surpasses, tada, at that time, gantasi, you shall go, nirvedam, carelessness, shrotavyasya, all that is to be heard, shrutasya, all that is already heard, cha, also. Translation and purport by Vishwaguru Srila Prabhupada. Translation. When your intelligence has passed out of the dense forest of delusion, you shall become indifferent to all that has been heard and all that is to be heard. Purport. There are many good examples in the lives of the great devotees of the Lord of those who became indifferent to the rituals of the Vedas simply by devotional service to the Lord. When a person factually understands Krishna and his relationship with Krishna, he naturally becomes completely indifferent to the rituals of fruitive activities, even though an experienced Brahmana. Sri Madhavendra Puri, a great devotee and acharya in the line of the devotees, says, Sandhya Vandana Bhadramastu Bhavato Bho Snana Tubhyam Namo Bho Deva Pitarascha Tarpana Vidhau Naham Kshamaha Kshamyatam Yatra Kwapi Nishadya Yadava Kulottamasya Kamsadvishah Smaram Smaram Agham Harami Tad Alamanye Kimanyena Me. O Lord, in my prayers 3 times a day, all glory to you. Bathing, I offer my obeisances unto you. O demigods, O forefathers, please excuse me for my inability to offer you my respects. Now, wherever I sit, I can remember the great descendant of the Yadu dynasty, Krishna, the enemy of Kamsa, and thereby I can free myself from all sinful bondage. I think this is sufficient for me. The Vedic rites and rituals are imperative for neophytes, comprehending all kinds of prayer 3 times a day, taking a bath early in the morning, offering respects to the forefathers, etc. But when one is fully in Krishna consciousness and is engaged in his transcendental loving service, one becomes indifferent to all these regulative principles because he has already attained perfection. If one can reach the platform of understanding by service to the Supreme Lord Krishna, he has no longer to execute different types of penances and sacrifices as recommended in revealed scriptures. And similarly, if one has not understood that the purpose of the Vedas is to reach Krishna and simply engage in the rituals, etc., then he is uselessly wasting time in such and simply engages in the rituals, etc., then he is uselessly wasting time in such engagements. Persons in Krishna consciousness transcend the limit of Shabda Brahma or the range of the Vedas and Upanishads. Text 53. श्रुतिविप्रतिपन्ना ते यदा स्थास्यति निश्चला समाधावचला बुद्धिस्तदा योगम् अवाप्स्यसि. Synonyms. Shruti, Vedic revelation. Vipratipanna, without being influenced by the fruitive results of the Vedas. Te, your. Yada, when. Sthasyati, remains. Nishchala, unmoved. Samadhav, in transcendental consciousness or Krishna consciousness. Achala, unflinching. Buddhihi, intelligence. Tada, at that time. Yogam, self realization. Avapsyasi, you will achieve. Translation and purport by Vishwaguru Srila Prabhupada. Translation. When your mind is no longer disturbed by the flowery language of the Vedas, and when it remains fixed in the trance of self realization, then you will have attained the divine consciousness. Purport. To say that one is in samadhi is to say that one has fully realized Krishna consciousness. That is, one in full samadhi has realized Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. The highest perfection of self realization is to understand that one is eternally the servitor of Krishna and that one's only business is to discharge one's duties in Krishna consciousness. A Krishna conscious person or unflinching devotee of the Lord should not be disturbed by the flowery language of the Vedas, nor be engaged in fruitive activities for promotion to the heavenly kingdom. In Krishna consciousness, one comes directly into communion with Krishna, and thus all directions from Krishna may be understood in that transcendental state. One is sure to achieve results by such activities and attain conclusive knowledge. One has only to carry out the orders of Krishna or his representative, the spiritual master. Text 54. Arjuna Uvacha स्थितप्रज्ञस्य का भाषा समाधिस्तस्य केशव स्थितधि किं प्रभाषेत किमासीत व्रजेत किम्. Synonyms. Arjuna Uvacha. Arjuna said, Sthitaprajnasya, of one who is situated in fixed Krishna consciousness. Ka, what? Bhasha, language. Samadhistasya, of one engaged in trance, of one situated in trance. Keshava, O Krishna. Sthitadhihi, one fixed in Krishna consciousness. Kim, what? Prabhasheta, speak. Kim, how? Asita, does remain. Vrajeta, walk. Kim, how? Translation and purport by Vishwaguru Srila Prabhupada. Translation. Arjuna said, what are the symptoms of one whose consciousness is thus merged in transcendence? How does he speak, and what is his language? How does he sit, and how does he walk? Purport. As there are symptoms for each and every man in terms of his particular situation, similarly, one who is Krishna conscious has his particular nature, talking, walking, thinking, feeling, etc. As a rich man has his symptoms by which he is known as a rich man, as a diseased man has his symptoms by which he is known as diseased, or as a learned man has his symptoms, so a man in transcendental consciousness of Krishna has specific symptoms in various dealings. One can know his specific symptoms from the Bhagavad Gita. Most important is how the man in Krishna consciousness speaks. For speech is the most important quality of a man, of any man. It is said that a fool is undiscovered as long as he does not speak, and certainly a well dressed fool cannot be identified unless he speaks. But as soon as he speaks, he reveals himself at once. The immediate symptom of a Krishna conscious man is that he speaks only of Krishna and of matters relating to him. Other symptoms then automatically follow as stated below. Text 55. Sri Bhagavanuvacha Prajahati yada kaman sarvan parthamano atmanyevatmana tushtasthita prajnastadochyate. Synonyms. Sri Bhagavanuvacha, the Supreme Personality of Godhead said, Prajahati gives up, yada when, kaman desires for sense gratification, sarvan of all varieties, partha, O son of Pritha, manaha gatan of mental concoction, atmani in the pure state of the soul, eva certainly, atmana by the purified mind, tushtaha satisfied, sthita prajnaha transcendentally situated, tada at that time, uchyate is said. Translation and purport by Vishwaguru Srila Prabhupada. Translation. The Blessed Lord said, O Partha, when a man gives up all varieties of sense desire which arise from mental concoction, and when his mind finds satisfaction in the self alone, then he is said to be in pure transcendental consciousness. Purport. The Bhagavatam affirms that any person who is fully in Krishna consciousness or devotional service of the Lord has all the good qualities of the great sages, whereas a person who is not so transcendentally situated has no good qualifications because he is sure to be taking refuge in his own mental concoctions. Consequently, it is rightly said herein that one has to give up all kinds of sense desire manufactured by mental concoction. Artificially, such sense desires cannot be stopped, but if one is engaged in Krishna consciousness, then automatically sense desires subside without extraneous efforts. Therefore, one has to engage himself in Krishna consciousness without hesitation, for this devotional service will instantly help one onto the platform of transcendental consciousness. The highly developed soul always remains satisfied in himself by realizing himself as the eternal servitor of the Supreme Lord. Such a transcendentally situated person has no sense desires resulting from petty materialism. Rather, he remains always happy in his natural position of eternally serving the Supreme Lord. Text 56. दुःखेष्वनुद्विग्नमनाः सुखेषु विगतस्पृहः वीतरागभयक्रोधः स्थितधीर्मुनिरुच्यते. Synonyms: Dukheshu, in the threefold miseries. Anudvignamanaha, without being agitated in mind. Sukheshu, in happiness. Vigataspruhaha, without being too interested. Vita, free from. Raga, attachment. Bhaya, fear. Krodhaha, anger. Sthitadhihi, one who is steady. Munihi, sage. Uchyate is called. Translation and purport by Vishwaguru Srila Prabhupada. Translation: one who is not disturbed in spite of the threefold miseries, who is not elated when there is happiness, and who is free from attachment, fear, and anger, is called a sage of steady mind. Purport: the word Muni means one who can agitate his mind in various ways for mental speculation without coming to a factual conclusion. It is said that every Muni has a different angle of vision, and unless a Muni differs from other Munis, he cannot be called a Muni in the strict sense of the term. Nasau Munir Yasya Matam na Bhinnam. But a Stitadhi Muni, as mentioned herein by the Lord, is different from an ordinary Muni. The Stitadhi Muni is always in Krishna consciousness, for he has exhausted all his business of creative speculation. He has surpassed the stage of mental speculations and has come to the conclusion that Lord Sri Krishna or Vasudeva is everything. He is called a Muni fixed in mind. Such a fully Krishna conscious person is not at all disturbed by the onslaughts of the threefold miseries, for he accepts all miseries as the mercy of the Lord, thinking himself only worthy of more trouble due to his past misdeeds. And he sees that his miseries, by the grace of the Lord, are minimized to the lowest. Similarly, when he is happy, he gives credit to the Lord, thinking himself unworthy of the happiness. He realizes that it is due only to the Lord's grace that he is in such a comfortable condition and able to render better service to the Lord. And for the service of the Lord, he is always daring and active and is not influenced by attachment or aversion. Attachment means accepting things for one's own sense gratification, and detachment is the absence of such sensual attachment. But one fixed in Krishna consciousness has neither attachment nor detachment because his life is dedicated in the service of the Lord. Consequently, he is not at all angry even when his attempts are unsuccessful. A Krishna conscious person is always steady in his determination. Text 57. Yas sarvatranabhishnehah tattat prapya shubham nabhinandanti na dveshti tasya prajna pratisthita. Synonyms. Yaha, one who, sarvatra, everywhere, anabhisneha, without affection, tat, that, tat, that, prapya, achieving, shubha, good, ashubham, evil, na, never, abhinandanti, praise, na, never, dveshti, envies, tasya, his, prajna, perfect knowledge, pratisthita, fixed. Translation and purport by Vishwaguru Srila Prabhupada. Translation. He who is without attachment, who does not rejoice when he obtains good, nor laments when he obtains evil, is firmly fixed in perfect knowledge. Purport. There is always some upheaval in the material world, which may be good or evil. One who is not agitated by such material upheavals, who is unaffected by good and evil, is to be understood to be fixed in Krishna consciousness. As long as one is in the material world, there is always the possibility of good and evil because this world is full of duality. But one who is fixed in Krishna consciousness is not affected by good and evil because he is simply concerned with Krishna, who is all good absolute. Such consciousness in Krishna situates one in a perfect transcendental position, technically called samadhi. Text 58. Yada samharate chayam kurmo ganiva sarvashah indriyanindriyartebhyas tasya prajna pratisthita. Synonyms. Yada, when, samharate, winds up, cha, also, ayam, all these, kurmaha, tortoise, angani, limbs, iva, like, sarvashaha, altogether, indriyani, senses, indriya arthebhyaha, from the sense objects, tasya, his, prajna, consciousness, pratisthita, fixed up. Translation and purport by Vishwaguru Srila Prabhupada. Translation. One who is able to withdraw his senses from sense objects, as the tortoise withdraws his limbs within the shell, is to be understood as truly situated in knowledge. Purport. The test of a yogi, devotee, or self realized soul is that he is able to control the senses according to his plan. Most people, however, are servants of the senses and are thus directed by the dictation of the senses. That is the answer to the question as to how the yogi is situated. The senses are compared to venomous serpents. They want to act very loosely and without restriction. The yogi or the devotee must be very strong to control the serpents like a snake charmer. He never allows them to act independently. There are many injunctions in the revealed scriptures. Some of them are do nots and some of them are do's. Unless one is able to follow the do's and the do nots, restricting oneself from sense enjoyment, it is not possible to be firmly fixed in Krishna consciousness. The best example set herein is the tortoise. The tortoise can at any moment wind up his senses and exhibit them again at any time for particular purposes. Similarly, the senses of the Krishna conscious persons are used only for some particular purpose in the service of the Lord and are withdrawn otherwise. Keeping the senses always in the service of the Lord is the example set by the analogy of the tortoise, which keeps the senses within. Text 59. विषया विनिवर्तन्ते निराहारस्य देहिनः रसवर्जं रसोऽप्यस्य परं दृष्ट्वा निवर्तते. Synonyms: Vishayaha, objects for sense enjoyment. Vinivartante, are practiced to be refrained from. Niraharasya, by negative restrictions. Dehinaha, for the embodied. Rasavarjam, giving up the taste. Rasaha, sense of enjoyment. Api, although there is. Asya, his. Param, far superior things. Drishtva, by experiencing. Nivartate, ceases from. Translation and purport by Vishwaguru Srila Prabhupada. Translation: The embodied soul may be restricted from sense enjoyment, though the taste for sense objects remains. But ceasing such engagements by experiencing a higher taste, he is fixed in consciousness. Purport: Unless one is transcendentally situated, it is not possible to cease from sense enjoyment. The process of restriction from sense enjoyment by rules and regulations is something like restricting a diseased person from certain types of eatables. The patient, however, neither likes such restrictions nor loses his taste for eatables. Similarly, sense restriction by some spiritual process like Ashtanga Yoga in the matter of yama, niyama, asana, pranayama, pratyahara, dharana, dhyana, etc., is recommended for less intelligent persons who have no better knowledge. But one who has tasted the beauty of the Supreme Lord Krishna in the course of his advancement in Krishna consciousness no longer has a taste for dead material things. Therefore, restrictions are there for the less intelligent neophytes in the spiritual advancement of life, but such restrictions are only good if one actually has a taste for Krishna consciousness. When one is actually Krishna conscious, he automatically loses his taste for pale things. We shall continue to read in the next session. Thank you very much for joining. Wish you all a happy Jagannath Ratha Yatra. May Lord Jagannath bless us all with his mercy and engage us in his loving devotional service. Shri Shri Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Maya ki jai. Shri Jagannath Ratha Yatra Maha Mahotsav ki jai.
जय
ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भगवद गीता की जय. विश्व गुरु श्रील
जय
प्रभुपाद की जय.
जय
हरे कृष्णा.
Hare